Good afternoon. I would like to come to you once again, as usual, to try to review last week's work and review this week's and see if we can offer some insights and some advice. And primarily, this is in response, actually, to the fact that the video for last week set a new record for the first time ever, I think, in at least in this course and all the 15 or so years or more that I've been teaching online courses and doing videos, nobody watched it. Thank you very much for that, and I'm being sarcastic, not out of disappointment, but now out of puzzlement. And the puzzlement becomes if we're not watching created videos that come up for every specific week, obviously I get concerned that other relevant course material is not being reviewed and used, and that's troubling. I've had some cases, honestly, where in grading, where I have asked people to do things that were instructions placed in a video, and people have gone ahead and done them anyway, which means that people are either not watching, they're not paying attention, they're not. Maybe the worst thing is they're choosing not to follow an instruction. So, yes, I'm a little bit disappointed, but I also want to point that out. That as I made it clear right up front, this is a tool that I use with great frequency. And as we get near the end of the course, there may be occasions where I would like to get some information to you and have you avail yourselves of some information that can be used to do a better job, give you some hints on the final paper, things like that. So please take advantage of these. It makes a difference. It really does. And that's not just my ego talking. That's my experience talking to you and hoping it helps you. That may explain a little bit why I honestly found this discussion not quite this week not quite as lively as I found other ones in the past. I think it was just seemed to be a little flat to me. The observations were there, and I just hope people understand that when we're talking about technology, as I often say, I frequently wave my cell phone around and said, you know what? Technology is not just cell phones and computers and things like that. Technology is sometimes very simple devices, but it is based on that concept of input, throughput, output. What do you get when you apply certain forces and certain tools to inputs to put them through your process and gain an output and gain value? It can take many, many forms. So it was one thing we'd like to have done was to make sure that people get that understanding and say it's not always electronic, not always computer driven. Another point too was about core competency. Core competency is just very simply one or two things that an organization or an individual does singularly well. And really, we'll find that successful organizations tend to build what they do and how they do it around one or two simple things that they do very, very well. And it is to the point where if they stray from those competencies, frequently it's not as effective, and the value creation is not there. Profitability suffers, brand recognition suffers. We end up with dilution of what was done well in order to maybe overexpand and get over eager as to what we're doing. So that's one thing we want to look at. Now this week, the subject is change. Change itself. What is change? How does it affect an organization? What are the types of change? What are some of the theories behind it? How do we find the time to do it right? How do we do it wrong? How do we often become our own worst enemies and our own biggest obstacles to change? And what are the obstacles to change, and how do they affect organizations? And in the discussion, we're going to go back and look at some relatively recent history that is actually in its final stages of ending. And we're going to talk about the company Sears. And Sears was once, not long ago, the largest retailer in the world. Well, far from it. They're barely hanging on by a thread. And I would like everyone to make sure that you go through that material that precedes the discussion question. And the one thing I'd really like to make sure we do this week, and it's something I haven't asked classes to do before, let's try to maintain a sense of realism and a sense of is what you're suggesting, because you're being asked to make some suggestions in the discussion about Sears and to play a role. Make those as realistic as possible. And when I say realistic, not was in the sense of role playing, but are these reasonable? Are these something that could be done? Show that you have gone back and researched the situation so that you understand what you're doing. And the other thing too is there will also be some supplemental information provided to you, and I'm going to try to do that this afternoon or this evening, about the concept of financial engineering, hedge funds in particular. It's a topic that comes up when you talk about the current Sears CEO and how things maybe went a little bit sour under his leadership. And maybe we can help explain it a little bit. So here's a situation where we do have some material for you that has not been in the course until this afternoon. And it is Tuesday afternoon. I'm at a bit of a late start on things this weekend, as most of us have. My bouquet of flowers here shows you we have had just come through Memorial Day weekend, and I hope everyone was able to take some time to reflect not only on the meaning of the holiday itself, which is the most important, but also maybe to have a chance to relax a little bit and maybe spend some time with your family and gather your wits about you as we move into the second half of the course. It's going to now start coming to an end rapidly. And that's why I had my little opening lament that nobody watched last week's videos, because now they will be coming into play in giving you instructions, hints, heads up, things like that. So as always, thank you for participating. Wish I could say thank you for watching last week. Didn't happen. And thanks for watching this week if you do. If you have any questions, please contact me. Thank you again.